and then you will start to collect your data and analyze it. After that step, you need to put puzzles together and write. Let's deep dive with Dr. Mohammed Al-Tannir to know how to write a manuscript. This is actually very important because acceptance for publication all depend on the way that you write your manuscript. So join me in welcoming Dr. Mohammed Al-Tannir. Welcome, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you, Dr. Dunya. So when we want to write our research manuscript, that means we are reaching the final stage of our research pathway. Any research that we conduct but we do not reach publication, that means it's nothing. Why? Because how to share, what is the purpose behind research? Is to share my findings with my colleagues everywhere in the world, not only my colleagues without my institution. So sharing knowledge is the purpose behind research. How to share your knowledge is once you publish it and everybody will have access to it. And again, I always stick to this wisdom. There is no way to get experience except through experience. Don't feel afraid. Don't say I'm not good in writing. You don't have to be the best English writer ever to write a scientific manuscript. No, that's not the case. If you know what you have done, it's easily can be put in a scientific manuscript. There is a lot of people that can give you a hand and support in your early stage of writing, and then you will be on your own, inshallah, with your experience. So why do we write and publish research manuscript? I said so, but also practically to get promoted sometimes. If I hold an academic position, it's mandatory that I have to publish few articles per year. And sometimes to get a job, when you put you all are now, many of you attending this are residents. They want to apply for a fellowship program. If you have publication and research experience, trust me, you will have priority in being selected for the program than your peers, because you all have the same clinical experience, the same almost the same level of knowledge. What really distinguishes you from your peers is your research experience and publication. So scientists are rated by what they finish, not by what they attempt. So I cannot ask if you tell me, yes, I'm active in research, so I have to check your name and see there is a list of publication under your name. If I find nothing, that means you have no research experience. What makes a good research manuscript is good science, good writing, publication in good journals. I will stop on good science. That means, as we explained it earlier in the proposal, that your research has to have a strong rationale. It has to add something to the literature. Good writing, I mean clear writing. I don't mean to be really like excellent writer. You have to really express yourself clearly. That means everyone who reads your manuscript, your article should understand what you mean in your introduction, in your methods, in your discussion, and clearly understand and easily understand your results. Publication in good journals. This is very important. Someone can tell me, yeah, I have 5 publications. When I check these 5 journals where he published his 5 publications, I see that they are not indexed, have no impact factor, nobody use them as references. So once we said good, your research somehow was meaningless. This is the anatomy of the paper. It starts with the title. You have to put the author's name and their affiliation, abstract followed by keywords, writing your introduction, where the last section of the introduction should include the objective. methods section, results, discussion, acknowledgement, and references. This is the IMRAD. This is what we call detailed IMRAD acronym. So title, authors and affiliation, abstracts, keywords, introduction, methods, result, discussion, acknowledgement, and references. The title page should carry the title, the authors, corresponding authors. What do we mean by corresponding author? This is the one that the journal will really communicate with for any reviews, any correction, and also people will communicate and send you for any question, any invitation to present your study in a conference and so on. Financial and equipment support. This is very important, and this should be placed for the majority of the journal in the title page. If you get any fund, if any pharmaceutical company supports you with any drugs or materials, should be stated here. Conflict of interest. This is very important. If you are really investigating a drug that is manufactured by a pharmaceutical company, and in addition to your work in a hospital or tertiary care center or wherever, you have a part-time job with this pharma, or you do any business for them on a part-time issue. So you have to state this and you tell them, yes, I am a consultant with this company for specific, for like insurance consultation, proposal writing, or so on. Stating so, it will really protect you and not denying you the consideration of your manuscript. This is an example of a title with authors on the front page of the article. The title now, as we said, it's probably the most important component. Why? Because we all start reading the title. If the title is clear, is attractive, and really address the content and breadth of the study and should not be misleading. As we said, should be as short as possible, maximum 15 words, and follow the body of the entire paper. This is an example. This is the affiliation of the authors, should state from which department, which institution, giving the email, and so on for all of them. Corresponding author should also be given in detail and be precise. Now if you will ask, is the primary author always the corresponding author? Most probably. It is between the first author and the last author. The last author on an article means he has a very scientific and experience. Usually people with senior people with experience put themselves at last author. Why? To give chance to junior researchers to have publication as a primary author. So sometimes we found that the senior author is the corresponding author because he's the most well known about the entire research project. Okay. So in majority of the cases, the corresponding author is either the first author or last author. Last author doesn't mean the least that has participated in the manuscript. No, on the contrary, as I said, is the senior one and usually is the mentor of the entire research project. If you do not have fund or financial support, you just simply state no financial disclosure of funding was involved in this manuscript preparation. And in 99% of cases, it's usually, that's what we use, the authors have no conflict of interest. The abstract is as important as the manuscript title. Why? Because it's the only part of the paper that most people will ever read it. And also the peer reviewers of the journal will start reading your abstract. If they see there's something really interesting, they go into the body of the manuscript. If they see it's rubbish, they won't really put much time and they tell you simply thank you for your submission. We are overwhelmed by the number of manuscripts submitted to our journal. We hope that next time you will have a greater chance. So the abstract serves for two main purposes. It helps a person decide whether to read the paper or not, or I mean the reviewer, or provide the reviewer with the framework of understanding the paper. After publishing your manuscript, the abstract is the first to be read by the readers. When we search the literature, we read the abstract. If you find it interesting, we really download the entire article and read it. So abstract, it's a critical part of the paper, should state the main objective, summarize most important method and results. We do not put any discussion in the abstract. There is no discussion section or subheading in the abstract, and we put our major conclusions and significance. We are not allowed to use acronyms in the abstract, and we have always to write it and rewrite it, and the same advice I gave it in the proposal, even though we read it the first, but it should be written the last after you finish the entire manuscript and put it in a very comprehensive and clear way. Abstract length depends on the author's instruction of each journal. Usually it's about, mainly for 85% of journals, it's in about 250 words, but it could range from 200 to 400 at the maximum. So as I said in the introduction, you should state the objective clearly. Methods: do not write unnecessary statement. Just define your study population, main outcome measure, intervention, define your study and control group if it's interventional study, and so on. Results: give the main important, interesting results, and conclusion: only give conclusions that are supported by your results, by your data. Do not really put general statements in your conclusion. So references are not also allowed in the abstract and should be the most labor-intensive part of the manuscript. So this is a summary of abstract. You see background, objective, methods, results, conclusion. And it should be balanced. You don't write a methods of 250 words and the results for 10 words and conclusion for 20 words. I want to also, if you say, but some may wonder if we have like important results. Sometimes when you are really like cornered with the length of the abstract, limitation of the words number, you can omit the background. You can start directly with the objective because you have very important results and conclusion that you need space for. So whenever you feel that you are tight in word count in the abstract, just delete the background and start directly with your objective if the instruction to authors for the selected journal allow you to say so. You have to strictly follow the instruction to author for each journal and fulfill all the requirements before your submission, because if not, they will keep sending the manuscript back to you to really align with their instructions. Keywords: it comes directly after the abstract, should be placed below the abstract, and you have to really select them. What I advise: do not select the same words as the title, because once people search for your manuscript, once it's published, the access will become like available upon by title or keyword. So this will give more like more access to for your paper to be read. So use keywords that are synonyms to the title or the main words you use in the article. The introduction is consists usually of 2 to 3 paragraphs. What the first paragraph should include should provide the background information about what has been done till you conduct this research in the area of your research question. Okay, so it's a background about the topic. The second one, you have to really include the rationale and what are the gaps that your research will fill. This final paragraph, it should include your research question or hypothesis. Okay, the length of the introduction should not exceed a page and a half at the maximum. The length of introduction of a manuscript in general should not exceed 1 page and a half at the maximum, including the objective. The objective, as I said, is the last paragraph of your introduction. Introduction should provide enough information to understand the rest of the paper, should establish a clear relationship between what is already known about the research problem and the specific research question. So we have to search the literature carefully. We have to provide the framework for the problem under study, explain the problem that was how it was researched and how the study will contribute to existing knowledge and add to the existing body of literature. Only the best references should be cited that clearly related to the study problem. As I said, all the references, not well-conducted study, not directly relevant to your research question should not be stated. So your research objective or question is the backbone of the study and should be clearly and easily found in the last section of your introduction. Do you not use technical language without explanation? It may obscure the study's value. So build case of why study is important. Again, rationale, provide brief background, give summary of previous findings very concisely, to state your objective. Now the third, so now we'll finish with the title, authors and affiliation, corresponding author, abstract, keywords, introduction, including objective. Now we come to methods and material. As I said, it's the manual of your study. The most common methods subheading are subjects. You define your study population, describe selection and recruitment of the observation or experimental participants clearly, including eligibility, inclusion, and exclusion. Eligibility means in inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. Where was the setting? It was a hospital, it was community, it was dispensaries, schools, universities, malls, whatever it is. So population, you have to define your population, you have to define your study cases group and control. You have to describe what clinical procedure or intervention were done and what data were collected. Depending on you have to define the study design. Depending on the study design, you have to include a description of the experimental protocol and timeline for procedures and measurement. If you have different follow-up times, you have to state that I will collect data at 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 24 weeks, 50 weeks, 100 weeks. So everything should be given in details in the method section. If you are using a new technique, you have to describe your new technique in details. If you are using a technique that is well known and previously described in the literature, you just briefly describe it in from 1 to 3 lines and put the reference where people can refer to read about the full details of the technique or device or the experiment. So describe the equipment used in the study. Be sure to describe how the equipment was calibrated and, if necessary, validated. This is very important. If your study is an equipment evaluation, give detailed description of the devices. Data analysis, the last section of the method section, in the last paragraph of the method section, you should write everything regarding statistics. Sample size justification, and what type of statistical analysis test you used, and why you used this test, and how you justify their selection. Also, you have to precise your p-value, and it's normally and generally set to be at 5%, 0.05. So this is the statistical analysis paragraph that should be presented in the last paragraph of the method section. Also, you will say what kind, like here, Kruskal-Wallis test was used, like SAS package version, some others use SPSS package version, and you have to state which is the company that is owns this statistical software. So best to begin writing when experiments still in progress, should be detailed enough so research can be repeated by others. This is very important. As we said, research can be repeated for generalizability purpose. So if someone wants to repeat your novel study, novel research, clarity should be described, clarity should be met by detailed description in the method section to enable other researchers to repeat your research easily. Reference published methods where appropriate. We talk about this. Include animal human use approval information. So this what we mean. You have to mention that your proposal had obtained IRB approval, and you have to say which IRB approval. If it's for your own institution, you say King Fahd Medical City IRB grant approval for this study. Okay, so this is very important. So you have to state everything in your method section. Description of the variables to be collected, how they are collected, give the, if like it's categorical variable, you say the answer will be like by yes or no. If it's a numerical variable, you said it's like will be get the actual number, and so on. The study design must be appropriate to answer your research question, and in order to minimize as possible as we can the biases and confounding factors that we talk about in our first lecture last Monday. Subjects and participant recruitment, exclusion, inclusion criteria, and assignment to different groups should be described. Assignment, that we mean we have to decide to describe if the study was randomized or not, what kind of randomization we used, and if the study is blinded once it is interventional study, what type, double blinded, triple blinded, single blinded, open label. All these details should be stated in your manuscript. When we are talking or writing a manuscript about a survey, the validation of the survey, the translation of the survey from English to Arabic, all these details you should involve and include in your manuscript also. So we should also talk about, as I said, about the questionnaire, its validity, and its translation steps, and everything should really be included as figures or tables also in the methods. Specific details about the study's independent variable treatment. You have to give details about what you give the patient, and dependent variables should be given. If treatments intervention have already been published, cite the source and give a synopsis only. You don't have to give details. describe the statistical methods, consult a biostatistician if you find it's a bit complex and you need the support of biostatistician, cite the name and version of the statistical software used. Now we come to the results section. It's the most important part of an experimental research paper. It's usually written as a singular section in a manuscript called results. Should provide a summary of what was found rather than a listing every possible analysis and data point. This is very important. And you always should start with the findings of your primary outcome. The review groups, characteristic and composition and study parameters should be at the beginning of this section. If we are comparing two groups, we should give in table 1 the demographic characteristics of the two groups, and we have to show that there was no significant difference between the two groups, because if any significant difference exists from the beginning, that means we are initiating and starting with the biased study. Like if the control group were in a weaker or they were more sick, unhealthier than the study group, so for sure the mortality will be more in the control group. So regarding age, diversity of gender, educational level, socioeconomic status, history of the disease, all should be almost even between control and study group. We mean by almost even that there is no significant difference. We in scientific writing, different alone doesn't mean anything. Even though better, we cannot say it's more effective if it just has a better outcome. It has to have a significant better outcome. So anything when we say it's better, it's weaker, it's less morbidity, more mortality, we have to use the word statistically significant, more morbidity. That means it was tested using a appropriate statistical test, and we reach a significance level that is usually below 0.05. So allowing the data to demonstrate whether this objective had been achieved or not. Why we analyze our data? We analyze our data to either reject or maintain our null hypothesis, right? If we reject our null hypothesis, that means we could prove our alternative hypothesis, what we aim behind the study. If we, according to the statistical test used, and we found no statistical significance, so we are unable to reject our null hypothesis, and our results are not significant by proving what we aimed for. This is an example. Use tables and figures in the results section. It's really help simplify extensive and complex data. And it summarizes the information, means that's supposed always to be followed by plus minus standard deviation and or numbers that should be always followed by percentage. Do not present numbers alone. Do not present means alone. Means should be followed by plus minus standard deviation, because it's the measure of variance of the population of the study according to the mean of the study. And numbers doesn't mean anything by itself. It's the percentage that will really indicate the adequate figure of what's happening. Accuracy totals equals data reported. This is really important. Using tables and figures also are able to stand alone, not require reference to text to explain it. I just put like, let's say the effectiveness of like screening in diabetes patient is really effective, or high sensitivity and specificity. So refer to table 2, and I give details in table 2. Do not duplicate results by table and text, by figure, table, and test. one mean is enough, like one tool is enough, either text or figure or table. Do not make repetitive results. Abbreviation should be spelled out in corresponding lesions of the figures and tables. Data in tables and figures need not to be restated in the text of the results and vice versa. This is an example of table. You see here we put the variable, how, like gender, it was male and female, what were the option? Familiar MR, yes, no. Prenatal event, yes, no. This will show you wherever the variable is categorical. So here what was wrong here, that the numbers were not followed by percentage. We said numbers should be always followed by percentage. And all data here, descriptive data, is numbers. So you see that's supposed to be followed by percentage according to the sample size of 100. Why it wasn't followed here? Because it comes by coincidence that the sample size is 100. So all the percentage will be just same repetition of the number, 69 followed by 69%. So that's why he didn't put the percentage here. But usually, not always the sample size is 100. It could be 80, 170, 420. So numbers should be followed by a parenthesis where percentage is within the parenthesis. Okay. And here at the end, we give the p-value. All p-values below 0.05 are considered significant, above 0.05 are considered non-significant. It's not recommended to put significant or not significant. You have to give the actual value as it's done here for the p-value. So we have two significant p-value and the remaining are not significant. So you should state the actual p-value and not letters NS, not significant or significant. This is a figure also. If figures are really supporting our result, we should provide figures. So the result should describe data and its subsequent analysis from a statistical interpretation only. We do not say support previous findings or anything. We give just numerical findings in the research section. We leave the interpretation to the discussion section. Okay, avoid subjective interpretation in the result section, like, for example, there was a huge difference. Just say there was a significant difference, because we say we really like build our cases in research on the issue of significance or not. Do not use opinions and conclusion, which, as I said, are appropriate only in the discussion section. Present the results in varied format. Don't do it the entire result as text or the entire result as table. Try to mix between tables, text, table, and figures whenever it's appropriate. Tables and figure must be straightforward and concise. Do not speculate or discuss result with size. Now we come to the main challenging section of the manuscript, which is the discussion. Discussion has 7 main paragraphs. The first one should describe the major finding of the report. Like you will say, the main finding of this report support the objective or so on, or state that there are significant difference between study group and control group. And this, what you do by this, you answered your research question, and don't make conclusion in part 1. Leave it till the end. Just answer if you were able to reject your null hypothesis or not. Paragraph 2, you have to justify your finding. You have to interpret your findings. Explain why you believe this happened, and don't over interpret, and always be aware of like overestimation and using highly significant, highly effective. Do not use this kind of words in your manuscript. This paragraph 3 to 5. Paragraph 3, you have to compare your findings and result to the previous published articles on the same or similar topics. Now, you tell me, what about if my research idea is new? You have always to really round the corners and try to find anything that is close to, because your idea didn't come from up in the air. It's based also on some evidence-based medicine, okay? So use references to support your interpretation. Section 3, like, specify what similar previous studies were found, or you are in alignment with what kind of studies of previously published. Make sure to do, and make section 4 for studies that do not really, or your findings do not really support previous findings. Okay, like my findings were contrary to what uh, Smith et al. Found in their study, and so on. Make sure to describe the literature that conflicts with your data and explain why the reports may conflict. You might find because they have used different study population, different technique, different, it was biased, it was not representative, and so on. Paragraph 6, you have to list the limitation of your study. You might say that my sample size got shrink because due to loss to follow up. I had lost many patients and they did not show up in the follow-up time. Or you have to say that the response rate of the questionnaire was limited because due to cultural issues or due to limited of budget or so on. Describe the generalizability of your results to other situations. Describe problem that you encountered during the conduct of your research. Paragraph 7 lists unanswered questions. And this is very important because it's our responsibility as researchers to guide future researchers what they need to how to continue in the path of this research. So we always, and this is also a tip, if you do not have an original research idea that came up from your clinical practice, just read few full good research articles, published articles, and read the full articles. And in the discussion section, you will see the recommendation from author, what kind of research is really recommended to be conducted. Propose few further research that should be undertaken. And paragraph 8, or we cannot consider it as, it is written in the discussion section, but it is not considered like a discussion. It's the conclusion. You have to really give a conclusion about your findings, your result. Do not give general statements, and explain your interpretation of the findings. Don't make conclusions that are not supported by the results. Don't forget the acknowledgement section. Who should I include in acknowledgement? Everybody who supported me, but he's not entitled to be a co-author. Okay? So like a biostatistician, a research coordinator who collected my data, someone who edited my paper English for English purpose. These people, funding agency, you could state them in the acknowledgement, because people who are eligible to be co-authors are should contribute to the scientific input in the paper, and should really contribute in all sections, from writing, from brainstorming the idea, to formulate the research question, to writing the proposal, to collect the data, analyze it, and interpret it, and writing the manuscript. These are the guidelines for authorship that are really accepted worldwide. References is the last section of your manuscript. Your references should be relevant and recent, should be highly selective because not well done studies, well conducted studies should not be selected to be as references. You have to read the references and critically appraise them and select the best of them. Do not misquote. Do not commit plagiarism. It's very important. Never ever write anything you read it in an article and you like claim it's your own. Even if you place it in your own words, you have to follow it by the reference you take it from. Use correct style for journal by obeying and following strictly the instructions to authors for each journal. Very important. And here also I give you another tip. Never ever start writing a manuscript, even though before the end of the study, before selecting the manuscript. Don't finish the manuscript and then start searching for a journal. Why? Because you will lose time and efforts. You have to really select the journal before start writing your manuscript, because every journal has different author's instruction. One will allow you to write an introduction for 2 pages. Other journal will tell you no, only 1 page. Others will tell you include the objective within the introduction. Other will tell you make it separate section, and so on. So in order to really to conserve and preserve and save your efforts, select your journal first, then write the manuscript. So the writing the manuscript, the hardest part is just to when you want to start. But after that, you will see it's not hard. Why it's not hard? Because introduction and methods, you already have them in your proposal when you read it. You just need to update them a little bit and tune them after because we know that collection of data, conduct of the study can take up to 1 or 2 years sometimes. If it's a cross-sectional study, a quick study, so your introduction and methods are ready. What you need to do, you need to enter your data, analyze it, write your result section, your discussion, conclusion, and you are done. References, you have them. Specifically for, I'm talking about chart review, quick studies, about case control, about cross-sectional studies. For long cohort or intervention study that may take up to 1 year or more, yeah, your introduction and references should be updated. So this is the order we write our manuscript with. You have the title already. You have the authors already, affiliation already. The abstract, you have the abstract of the proposal. The only part you want to add it to the abstract, to the manuscript abstract, is your findings, your results, and conclusion. Change it a little bit. Your introduction could be the same with little update of reference if some references came up in the last few months. Methods is the same. So you start writing your results section and discussion and you are done. Okay? So clear writing is the key. You have to be precise, logic in thinking, brief, and direct. This is what constitutes clear writing. And when we say good writing, good manuscript writing, we mean clear writing. Be precise, don't be vague. Be brief, don't be redundant. Be direct, don't be indirect. And be logic, and this is very important. Be logic, yani use the evidence-based medicine. Don't give your own opinion. All everything should be based on references, on evidence. Develop a good writing style. Read well-written articles. As much as you read full, well-written articles, you will become better in writing on your own. Try to get good writers to review. You need the support in the beginning. You need a hand. So do not really hesitate to ask for it. Learn from editing changes. Don't let people do your work. If you want to be really a continuous successful researcher, so you have to really count on yourself. Try to learn how to do things. Don't say, I will hire someone to write for me. I will hire a biostatistician to do the statistic for me. I will hire someone to collect data for me. Yeah, for sure, you need a team to support, but you have to know the art. If you do not know the art, that people can you really fool you, or can do things or that is not for your own good. So learn the art, learn from your experience from editing changes, read more, read full articles, and trust me, you will become an excellent scientific writer. Thank you so much, and I will be happy to answer your questions. We have 2 questions here in the queue. What should be written in the part of reference? Is it the reviewed literature related articles? Yeah, you should write in the reference the articles that you use their content in your manuscript. If I use like lately the devices to detect diabetes were like uh, without picking for blood or blood-free testing. So from where did I get this information? From article published by Dr. Al-Haj. I will put this article in details and reference and refer to it in a number after the statement I put. That's why that's what you're supposed to use as references. The article that you use their content or even one sentence from it in your manuscript. Question 2, do all these steps are necessary for all type of research? Yes, beside case report. Case report is a different issue. But for case control, for all observational study, cross-sectional, you have to write all this section. Cohort prospective, you have to write all this section. Cohort retrospective, you have to write all this section. Case control, you have to write all this section. Randomized interventional studies, yes. Non-randomized interventional studies, yes. Double-blind randomized studies, yes. Open-label randomized studies, yes. Yes. Do I need to go into extensive literature review and mention it in the proposal for the IRB approval? No. I told you the difference between a proposal for grant and proposal for IRB. Abstract, introduction, objective, methods, references. No literature review extensive for IRB. Any more question?
Thank you, Dr. At-Tannir, for your effort in presenting amazing and outstanding informative lecture regarding writing manuscript, which is very, very important. Sorry, we ran out of time and we couldn't receive any more questions. We cannot take a break session, but I promise you that we will take a prayer break in the after at 6:30 for 10 minutes. At this point, I would like to thank again Dr. Muhammad At-Tannir for really his amazing lecture, and we can now move to the next session.
Thank you, and have a nice weekend. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you this week, all of you. Thank you so much.
For you too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Sorry, you have a gift from Dr. Muhammad Al-Hariri, so he will give you 5-minute breaks before he starts. I know writing proposal and writing manuscript is a tough subject, So maybe you need just to rest your mind for 5 minutes. Then we will come back to Dr. Muhammad Al-Hariri, and don't forget to download Mendeley program, so that you take the maximum benefit from the last lecture, which is from 7 to 8 p.m. Thank you so much, and see you again after 5-minute break.